so long. You need to edit, okay? But yeah, that annoyed me. I should probably sleep. I haven't slept in a while. Hey guys, my name is Gloria and welcome back to my channel. I am sick. I don't think it's the virus, but I have a really sore throat and I'm very tired. Great day to film a video. So I've been catching up on all of my physical TBR recently. I've been reading a lot of books and there's a few that have been on my list for a long time. This one is a brand new one that my boyfriend bought me, and I've seen so many people talk about this, but I still don't know what's the deal with it. But I figured I would do a reading vlog because people have been saying that this is the scariest book they've ever read and it's a really great horror, so I thought I would just read along with the video and record some of my thoughts while I'm reading it as it's going along. It is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. It is, honestly, it's like a textbook or something. I got the black and white version. Apparently there's a coloured version where some of the words are in different colours, but it doesn't matter that much, hopefully. And it's also very strange, very different. Everything seems to be weird. It's experimental in the structure and everything, which is great. I love new interesting books, but it could be a bit of a challenge to read, especially when I'm not functioning at my highest level, but I'm gonna see what I think of it. It's not very inviting, as the first page says, "This is not for you." It's a good thing that I'm like a toddler, and the more you tell me not to do something, the more I do it. So I'm gonna get reading into this today while I wait for my doctor to call me back, and it's gonna be an interesting read, to say the least. Whether I like it or not, who knows, but it's gonna be interesting. So I best get started reading it. It's actually been 2 days since I filmed that. Some things got in the way and I got drunk, and today I'm hungover. Got some cool anime drawn on my arm from my housemaid though, so you know. Anybody else into card captors? Who knows? Yeah, it's been a couple of days. It's currently almost 2 AM, but time means nothing right now because the world is the way it is. So I'm gonna start now, and I'm gonna start reading House of Leaves at 2 AM. Why not? Let's see how long it takes me to read this. Time means absolutely nothing. Hey guys, just an update. I'm just about 120 pages into House of Leaves. So far, it's just taken me back to my college days. It's almost like a thesis written. There's so many footnotes and references to books that I'm pretty sure don't exist in real life. No, they can't exist because this doesn't exist. But yeah, it's weird. You're kind of brought into the story by an apprentice tattoo guy who just finds this old guy's stuff in his house when he dies and starts reading it and becomes obsessed with it. And this old guy's stuff is pretty much a thesis based on a documentary about a guy's house that may or may not be real. So I've read up to like here. It seems normal, there's annotations and whatnot, but then the next few pages are like upside down and backwards and in weird squares. And a lot of this is in like German and French, and I don't... what? So clearly this is an artsy literary book. It's supposed to be out there, it's supposed to push the boundaries and stuff. So far, I am interested in the story. I am a little bit creeped out by the house. The tattoo artist guy's a bit... oh, he's fine. He just sleeps around a lot. Not really that interested in all the women he's sleeping with, but yeah, I am liking it so far. But I feel like maybe if it goes too far off the deep end, I'm just gonna lose the actual story that I'm interested in. But We shall see. Okay, so I am currently on page 339. We're just about to start. There were some improvements and some degradations. I'm starting to really look forward to the almost blank pages because they're just so much easier to get through. When I see big chunks like this that are mainly just literally the ramblings of a madman, it's a bit, your mind starts to wander. I mean, this was never supposed to be an easy book to read. I know that that's not the point of the book, but it really doesn't throw you any bones. There's like, oh, this is quite funny, there's a line where it's supposed to be a bibliography and it says films too many to mention, and yet, so on all of these pages, all of the next pages I'm going to show you, he's just naming buildings. So this is like, oh, a building is this thing, here's examples of buildings, there's about 2,000 buildings, just old stone church in Cleveland, just buildings and buildings, more buildings, more buildings, more buildings. And on the other side, I don't even know what this is related to because it's upside down. On the other side of all these pages, it's names. These squares are just backwards on the other page, so you don't even have to read them. It's just like, you know, on an intellectual level, you're kind of thinking, oh, that's clever, I get it, but it's actually exhausting to read. The tattoo artist guy Truant, you're kind of getting inside his head. He's losing his mind reading all of this and trying to stick it into a book. I think he thinks if he puts it all together it will stop driving him crazy. Don't think that's true. But there's a lot of weirdness from him that just seems to be nonsense. It's just ramblings, or he'll describe a scary thing but then he'll say, but that didn't actually happen, and that's sort of frustrating. There's also a couple of lists of just all the women him and his friends have had sex with. There's not a great representation of women in this book. He just seems to have weird sexual encounters with loads of women. They don't seem to have much personality about them. The lists where his friend lists all the women he's slept with in the last few months, which is like 30 people. He's got bits beside them of like their traumas and like rapes that have happened to them, and you're just like, why is this relevant? Why would you write this down and make a list of this? So it's weird. I do think I got a peek into the guy's mind though, but in one of the endless notes, he's talking about someone else. There's this fake book that a fake woman wrote about Jacob and Esau from the Bible. And he says, Rucala's 900-page book is not one page too long. As she says herself, to adequately analyse the history of Esau and Jacob is to painstakingly exfoliate layer by layer the most delicate millefeuille. Of course, it is also an act that could in the end deprive the reader of all taste for the subject. Rucala accepts this risk, recognising that an investment in such a complex, without exception, time-consuming array of ideas will in the end yield a taste far superior to anything experienced casually. The sun is here. I did it. Okay, so I've had a nap, I've had some time to think, I have clearly had a shower. I'm still not entirely sure how I should feel about this book. I don't know if I properly explained it earlier. So there's so many layers and there's so many people to get through to get to the actual story about the house. The main guy who finds a big trunk of writing in this old guy's house who just died, and the writing is this old guy's pretty much thesis on another guy's documentary about his house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. There are doorways and hallways that appear that shouldn't be there and get bigger and smaller whenever they want. It's very sinister, but there's also the whole academic aspect of it. There's so many different interpretations of all of these things coming from the old man's research, and there's also even the editors of Truant's part. There's footnotes that he gives, and then there's corrections that the editors give. So there's just so many layers and there's so much going on. In the beginning it does start off well. When I first flicked through it, I thought it was really interesting, it was really different, it was going to be, you know, a fascinating read. But it very quickly just became work. It just became really hard work. I feel like if I'd been given this to read in college, to actually write an essay on, I would have given up pretty quickly. And even if I hadn't been making this video, I think I would have given up, because it's just, most of what I read in this book, the 700 pages, was just irrelevant, and I can't even remember what it was, because it was just pretentious posturing about all these theories, and it completely took me out of the story and completely took me out of what was scary about the story. When I went to a writing retreat last month, I think it was, Catriona Ward, who is a writer, was there, and she showed us a piece of writing from Shirley Jackson, The Haunting of Hill House, and she got us to write just a small paragraph about an object in the room, and to write it really objectively and detail the object in every way we possibly could. It turned out to be a really dry, boring piece of writing, but then at the end she got us to write the sentence, and that's when I saw the face behind it. And it turned out that the attention to detail, the overwhelming detail, even repetition of detail, can make things seem so sinister. It's, if you can imagine just staring at something in a dark hallway and just being so focused on it, and then something appears behind it, it makes it even that much creepier and that much scarier. I think that's what this book was trying to do. I think it was trying to overwhelm the reader with details and with ideas and information, so that when the background story of the house did crop up, it was even scarier. And in the beginning, the first few scares that happened, they did sort of shock me. They were actually creepy, and I get why people like that, but then you just get so bogged down in all those footnotes, and the upside down footnotes and the backwards footnotes, and again, those were stylistic choices just to get the reader into the idea of it being a maze and being confusing and overwhelming and stuff. But I think in the end, it just, I was sick of the book by the end of it. There's a load of poems at the end that I didn't read, and letters from Truant's mother that I didn't read because they just weren't relevant to the actual story of the house, and I was just so sick of looking at this book. I think the actual idea of a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and the family that were in the house, and even their backgrounds, that would have made for a great novel. It would have been, I would have absolutely loved it. You could have even made it a great novel. I think he made it unique, and he made it stand out by surrounding it with everything else and all the other layers and the experimentalness of it. I would have just been happier with that as a novel rather than everything else on top of it. Like he basically breaks all the rules that you're told as a writer not to break. I mean, if you try and go to an agent or publisher saying that you want to have loads of footnotes in your novel, that's going to be shot down. If you want to have backwards footnotes, if you want to pretend that there's thesis written about it, if you want to have all these different layers of people before you actually get to the story, these are all things that you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to overcomplicate things and over-explain things, and those are all the things that he did. And this just goes to show that there are no real rules in writing, but the rules are there for a reason, and I think he lost a lot of people with this by breaking those rules that we're all sort of used to. I definitely think you shouldn't condescend to a reader, but there's also the opposite end of the spectrum where you become too pretentious and too overindulgent in your own, what you want to do, and I just got lost a lot in it. Also, I didn't really learn a lot about the old man Zampano who wrote this thesis pretty much. I knew very little about him by the end of the book. I can't tell you much about him except he was old and blind, and that was it. Also, Truant just seems like a straight guy's fantasy. You know, he's had a difficult past, and now he's got this dark secret and he's losing his mind, and yet he's still having these amazing sexual conquests with incredibly beautiful women. And even near the end of the book, where he hasn't eaten, he hasn't washed, he hasn't showered, he doesn't have electricity in his house, there's still women coming to him wanting to have sex with him, and then getting really annoyed when he doesn't have sex with them, even though he's completely unwashed and a crazy person. And it wasn't realistic. Obviously he's an unreliable narrator, so that could have all been bullshit, but why was it there if it was bullshit? And it wasn't interesting to read, didn't make any sense to me, and him as a character was just, yeah, again, it took me out of the book. I wanted to stay with the house and the Navidsons, and I just didn't get to do that with this. I think it was an interesting idea. I think he did well with it. I liked the layout of some of the pages were very interesting, and it really worked with the narrative and what was happening to the characters, but I think in the end it was just too self-indulgent on the part of the writer for me. Thank God it's over. I'm just gonna try and get rid of it now. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you've read it, what you think of it, if you're thinking of reading it. Are you still gonna read it? You can like and subscribe down below if you want to see me torture myself some more. And I hope everyone's staying safe. I shall see you in the next video.